So, who's ready to hear me spoil the shit out of this episode and also talk about Crosshair for the next 10 to 20 minutes? Let's go. Because, goddamn, did this episode have some really cool shit going on, because we got to see Hauser, not so much. He wasn't so super chill with following orders as we've seen, you know, regular clones doing. So that was interesting. And we also got to see Crosshair actually fighting the chip for once, because, you know, it's been implied this whole time that he's fighting it because, you know, he didn't really want to go under at first, but, like, we never got to see him fight it. And in this episode we see it a lot, because we see his face a lot more and him just being like absolutely confused and having no idea what the hell's going on. It's just, it was nice to see that, you know, actually see some goddamn emotion on his face, which we haven't really gotten from really any of the Bad Batch, so it was interesting to see it from him, for one, you know, but I don't know. I think, you know, that's implying that at least the chip's starting to not work as well, or, you know, hasn't been working as well, since, you know, he's got that scar on the side of his face, on the side of his head, which is, you know, implying that it's fucking with the chip a little bit. And we see in this episode that's probably happening because he's not as intense as the last time we saw him, you know, so interesting. But before I continue to rant, what is up, my dudes, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, what's up? I am One Creative Ginger, and in this house we have salty takes and emotional rants over fictional media, all while wearing the most amazing makeup you've ever seen in your entire life, and that is a fact. So, does that sound like fun? Well, how about helping a bitch out by clicking that subscribe button, and if you find at least one of your brain cells enjoying at least a millisecond of this video, why not hit the like button too? So, this episode starts off where, you know, the last one kind of left off. So, you know, we have Hera's family in prison, unfortunately, and goddamn Rampart is taunting them and saying how Sham is a traitor and all of them are traitors, and how Sham tried to kill Ta, and that's just totally awful, and, you know, now he's gonna tell the rest of his people, like, how awful Sham really is, and of course, you know, it's like, they're not gonna believe him. Are you kidding me? Like, no, he definitely has the love of his people, so they're not gonna believe something like that, and they don't like Ta either, so they're probably like, well, fuck him. If Sham tried to kill him, alright, we're cool with that, like that kind of thing, you know, but yeah. So that's all happening, and Hauser's actually there too, and he's very conflicted, very guilty, because obviously he's just very sweet. He cares about these people, but they did do some pretty traitorous things, you know, so, you know, he's conflicted, and it's really nice to see that. But then we also get Eleni being, I think that's her name, Eleni being a bad bitch, because during this scene she actually says that she'd rather be Rampart's enemy after seeing how he treats allies, and that's some queen shit right there. We love to see it. After that, we see Hauser getting a little bit suspicious, and he actually questions Rampart, saying that Sham wasn't the one that shot Ta, because apparently he's still alive. For somehow. I don't know how he survived, but apparently he's alive. Or maybe that's a lie, I don't know, because Rampart says that he's recovering, so I don't know if that's true or not, but he does say that Ta is recovering, he's still alive, maybe, so that's a thing. Really weird, but yeah. But Hauser's like, yeah, it wasn't Sham that tried to shoot Ta, it was someone else. And Rampart's like, well, then who was it? And then Hauser decides to keep his mouth shut, either because he isn't sure who shot Ta, or he does know who it was. But he's smart. He's definitely an older clone, because you can see in his face he does have wrinkles, you know, so he does look like an older clone, so he's been around for quite a while, and he's probably smart enough to not accuse Rampart outright of, you know, orchestrating Ta getting shot and, you know, arresting Sham and everyone else, you know, so I think he's smart enough to keep his mouth shut, because he knows he doesn't have anything on Rampart, and he really can't do anything, and accusing him's not going to do any good, you know, because he's probably just gonna get thrown in jail as well, you know, so that was an interesting scene, and I really liked how that played out, so So then Hera contacts the Bad Batch, asking them for help in saving her family, you know, all that. And in my last video, I thought she would either contact Sid or Sid would contact her, because keep in mind, in the last episode, her uncle was in contact with Sid about the weapons dealing and all that. So, you know, maybe Hera had that contact with Sid somehow, you know. Maybe that, but that's not what happened. Apparently, Omega gave Hera their, like, ship's contact code or whatever that was, so Hera could contact them if they needed help. So that was that was a little random, but it was nice because Omega's able to convince the Batch to go back and help Hera, even though they're kind of like, why are we doing this? So that was kind of weird that they were just, you know, I don't know. I didn't like their reaction to it. So they end up going anyways, and Hunter's not very eager, but they end up going to scope out the capital where Hera's family's being held, and they see that Crosshair's there as well. And this is where it annoyed the shit out of me, because this has been a problem the entire show. They never really seem to have, I mean, the Bad Batch never really seems to have sympathy for Crosshair, especially when they just all just, like, it was fine when Wrecker tried to kill them. They just forgave him instantly and it was fine. But, like, I don't know why they're always just super annoyed to see him, because whenever they interact with him, or like they see him in this case, they're just kind of like, oh god, he's here, great, we have to deal with that now. And I can see why, because obviously Crosshair's very, very much a nuisance whenever they deal with him, which I get, and obviously they can't really do anything to help him right now, because you really can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped, and in this case the mind control won't allow him to get help from anyone. So unfortunately that's why, you know, he's such a hard person to get a hold of. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, the way they were totally fine with Wrecker trying to kill them, but with Crosshair just existing with the inhibitor chip activated just annoyed the shit out of them. And I was just like, oh god, it was just so weird. And I don't know, like, and Wrecker's always the one to have like some sarcastic comment either to Crosshair or like about him, which is kind of weird too, because one, Wrecker's the one that succumbed to the chip as well, so I don't know why he wouldn't have a little bit of sympathy for him as well, especially since it seems like both Wrecker and Crosshair do have a closer relationship than anyone else. At least Crosshair talks to him a lot more than anyone else, really. But, like, I don't know. You couldn't have a little bit of sympathy for him. And to be fair, it does change a little bit, the tiniest bit in this episode. But, God, this specific scene, it just annoyed the shit out of me how they were just totally just not sympathetic towards Crosshair at this point. I'm hoping that changes, and with how this episode went, I think that might happen, but I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna change, but like at this, that little bit just just got to me, because it's been a recurring thing in the show, and I can't stand it anymore, because it really doesn't seem like the show likes Crosshair very much, or Star Wars in general doesn't like him very much. So that's been pissing me off, because he's an interesting character. He's a fun character. I like characters that get mind controlled, so, you know, I'm a little annoyed that they're not treating my boy very well, so. But we do have 4 more episodes, so that can change. Who knows? Wish there was a little bit more emotion going on, because yeah, this is a complicated issue. There needs to be emotion. The fact that they've kind of ignored Crosshair this whole time and haven't been talking to him, I think does stem from like the guilt and betrayal they do feel from this whole situation. So it does make a little bit of sense why they've been like not talking about him, because they're just like, they're hurt. They don't like what happened, and neither does Crosshair, but you know, he can't show that because the inhibitor chip doesn't let him do that. But yeah, so then we get a scene where Rampart basically calls out Crosshair for being ineffective, and his team just in general being ineffective in tracking down Hera, and essentially threatens to replace him, and he does this all in front of Hauser, and he and Crosshair actually have this little stare down. Yeah, Crosshair has been really hard to figure out what he's thinking when he's looking, because we're not used to seeing any emotion on his face. Whenever we saw him, he was just boom, nothing going on, because really nothing was going on when they showed up in the Clone Wars, right? But with this, yeah, it's interesting. It's really hard to like pinpoint what he's really thinking, because we don't know how much he's fighting the chip, and we don't know how much of the real Crosshair is actually shining through. You know, we don't know any of that, so it's really hard to like deduce what he's really thinking in these scenes where we really get to see his face and what's going on, right? So it was interesting to look at his face, because he did look like he was a little in pain. He looked very sad in that scene. It's just, yeah, what's he really thinking? Because he could just be pissed that Hauser was there and he witnessed all of this, you know, rather degrading shit, right? Because Crosshair's not about that. He likes to be on top, right? But it could also be like them trying to figure out what's going on. Like, they're both clones. They might have a little bit of something, some like understanding about like, should we really be fighting for the Empire? That kind of thing. You know, that whole like questioning their orders, right? Although it'd be harder for Crosshair because they fucked with his chip earlier on, so we don't know how that's going to like affect him in the long run either. But another thing about this scene, he was incredibly sassy in the beginning, because he's like leaning against the desk, he's tossing the data pad at Rampart and being like, look, here they are. And then he also like puts a hand on his hip too, like he's getting sassy. And I have no idea where that attitude came from, but I think that's part of the old Crosshair too, before the chip fucked him all up, right? Like, he was very sassy in the Clone Wars, and so that's coming out. So I do think the chip's not working as well, because yeah, he was sassy. I think that has to do with his chip not working as well, so let's hope that's a thing. So after they get back to like Hera's little hideout, she and Omega propose a plan to create a distraction at the refinery, which is like totally out of the way of the capital, so then the troops in the capital will divert their attention away, so then the Bad Batch can sneak in and rescue Hera's family. So Hunter ends up agreeing, and he and Echo go to the capital while the rest of them go and fuck up the refinery. So Crosshair's still at the capital along with Hauser and his men, and they all try to block the only exits that they can really make out of the capital, but Hauser decides that he's going to stop the Batch and, you know, the Twi'leks from escaping, and tells them that you shouldn't go this way because it's a trap and they're going to arrest you or kill you or something. We're not really sure. But he ends up saying that he was wrong because the Empire's wrong. He should never have, you know, followed the Empire's orders, that kind of thing. And he says he's going to try to convince his own soldiers that, you know, what they're doing is wrong. And before he does that, he actually says that he can't like abandon his men, and he's going to try to get through to them. And when they all leave, Hunter ends up hesitating, and probably because he's thinking about Crosshair and how they abandoned him, and whenever they tried to get through to him, they didn't really do much. They were kind of just like, fight the chip, we can't help you, sorry. Solve it on your own, that kind of thing. So I think it's really getting to Hunter. That's a good sign. Hopefully they end up helping Crosshair at some point, because with how this episode ended, does sound like they might get their opportunity to get a hold of Crosshair. Yeah, I'm not really sure how they'd go about removing it unless Tech made something out of the blue to just fix it on the ship, because either way they'd have to go back to Braca, but I think they'd be fine if they went back at this point. But I don't know. I don't know how they're gonna do that, but I hope the chip stops working or gets out somehow. You know, so Crosshair can rejoin his family, because goddamn, it really feels like this show's trying to push him out, and they don't like him very much. That's the whole vibe I'm getting from it. So I hope that changes, which, with how Hunter reacted, I think that might change, so we'll see. I just want him to be happy and not brainwashed anymore. Jesus. Is that too much to ask? I wouldn't think so. So Hauser does try to convince some of his fellow clones that what they're doing is wrong, and he actually does get through to a couple of them, which was very interesting. And, you know, they lay down their weapons and all that, but they all end up getting arrested, thankfully. Really thought someone might die, and that person being Hauser, probably. But no one dies, at least not yet. But they get arrested by Crosshair's team, and I didn't think that made a whole lot of sense, at least at first, because you'd think like the chips would stop them from defecting, right? The inhibitor chips have been active this entire time, you know, keeping the clones in line, keeping them loyal to the Republic, and, you know, not trying to defect or anything, or realizing that they're kind of, you know, slaves to the Republic in one way or another, because that's what they were created for. Once Order 66 is executed, they're only supposed to kill the Jedi and believe that the Jedi are traitors. That's all that Order 66 really does. It was interesting to see that, because, yeah, we haven't really seen what happens post Order 66 once that's all done, basically. So we haven't seen how at least the regular clones reacted to it. So it was interesting to see how it looks like Hauser and his men weren't really working with the Jedi, because they were on Ryloth, and it doesn't seem like there were any Jedi, because if there were, you think, you know, the people would have been like, clones are just gunning down Jedi right now. That's not good. So it was interesting to see, because they probably did not, that programming probably didn't kick in to, you know, make them try to kill any Jedi. Anyways, then the batch escapes with, you know, Hera's family, and Crosshair tries to shoot them down, and when he misses as usual, he takes off his helmet and just stares after him like he has the last 2 times he was left behind. Except this time, Hunter looks back when they're escaping in the ship, and when he does, Crosshair ends up looking away, and obviously Hunter can't see him, so he doesn't see him turning away. But I don't know if Crosshair's able to see him, because maybe his eyesight's good enough to see Hunter from that far away, and that's why he looks away when he sees Hunter turn to look at him. I don't know. I'd like to think that he could see him, like, whew. Because that'd be really sad, because, yeah, Crosshair would be like, well, there they go again, great, I'm left on my own, that kind of thing. Yeah, ugh. It was nice to see, because, yeah, we see 2 separate times Hunter being like, God damn it, yeah, we have kind of been abandoning him and not trying to get through to him at all. So that was very nice to see him actually showing that for once, actually showing some, like, you know, guilt and remorse for abandoning Crosshair, because that's literally what they did. Whether you like it or not, that's what they did, because, yeah, Crosshair cannot help the inhibitor chip controlling him. That's not his fault. He didn't have a choice when that thing activated, so, you know, it's nice to see Hunter actually feeling bad. Yeah, I hope they save him. I'm very tired. I just want his chip either out or to stop working so he can go back with his family. I hope that happens. I hope he just doesn't, like, feel so guilty that he leaves because he just doesn't feel like he deserves to be a part of them anymore. I want him to stop being brainwashed already. It's been a while. I think we're done with that now. But yeah, so Hera and her family end up escaping off-world, and before they leave, they offer money to Hunter, who declines it and says that, you know, they need it more than they do, and that was very sweet. That was very cute. But then this episode ends with Rampart looking over the whole entire wrecked refinery. You know, it's on fire because they blew that shit up, and Crosshair ends up joining him, and Rampart says that he underestimated the Bad Batch, and is all like, you know, if only they were fighting for our side, you know, what would that, what kind of shit would that accomplish, right? And Crosshair ends up asking if he can hunt them down, and Rampart's like, yes, do it. And the show ends with just focusing in on Crosshair's face, and he's looking like confused, or like he's planning something, because his expression is so goddamn hard to read this entire time, because you're just never really sure what he's thinking, because again, we never see any emotion on this guy's face. We never saw it in Clone Wars. We never saw it before. This is the first time we're really seeing it in the show in general because, again, we haven't really seen him a whole lot. So it was nice to see how much he's just having a tough time. He's fighting the chip very clearly because we do see some of his old personality shining through in this episode. But, yeah, his face, it was so hard to tell because at first he looks very confused or he's thinking very hard about something, and then his expression kind of changes because he kind of like has this really tiny like smirk on his face, and it's very subtle, but it's just like he's planning something, isn't he? But does like the Empire approve of what he's planning, you know? Because is he, you know, like, cause he wanted to hunt down the Bad Batch instead of kill them. Now it's implied that Crosshair's not going to try to kill them. At least it seems like, because hunt is different than kill, because he's always been told to kill them the first 2 times, but this time it was to hunt them down. So I don't know. It's kind of implied that he's supposed to like capture them or something like that, and I think the inhibitor chip's not working as well, so I think he's like, thank God, now I have a reason to go out on my own, so then, you know, the Batch will have a chance to actually catch him and try to get the chip out. Like, I feel like that's intentional. I feel like Crosshair might leave himself vulnerable and alone at some point, so then the Batch has the opportunity to get his ass and get the chip out. You know, that's what I'd like to think is gonna happen. He's planning something. His face definitely says that, but it also says that he's fighting the chip too, so who knows how well that's gonna go, and if he actually does try to kill them, or he tries to, you know, talk to them, something. I don't know what's gonna happen, which is which has got me very excited for the rest of this show, because I would like to see what happens with all that. Either way, this was a great episode. I loved getting to see what was up with Hauser this whole time, because he was a little he was interesting in the last one, because we weren't really sure what his deal was, but he was interesting, and getting to see Crosshair fight the chip, and then the Batch doing what they do best, you know, with blowing shit up, right? Yeah, I'm really excited to see what's gonna happen in these last 4 episodes, and to see if Crosshair's chip is going to stop working either on its own, or the Batch will get it out for him, because, I don't know, Tech probably has some sort of inhibitor chip removal thing at this point. Like, that would make sense, right? But yeah, and then, you know, if they do get the chip out, like, how is that gonna happen? Like, there's obviously some guilt and betrayal between these guys, and I don't know, I'd like to see how that happens. I'd like to see, you know, like, what's gonna happen. Are they just going to accept Crosshair back into their team, or, you know, what's gonna happen? Like, but yeah, so that is all I have to say about episode 12 of The Bad Batch. If you guys have any predictions, thoughts, and or feelings about this show, share all that good shit in the comments down below. So thank you guys so much for watching and getting to the end of my video. If you would like to support me, I sell all kinds of art on these 4 sites right here if y'all are interested in buying. If you would like to follow me on other social media, I have an Instagram and Twitter and a Tumblr if you'd like to stay up to date on my shenanigans. So if you liked this video, why not hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, and give that bell a ring if you would like to see more of my face every Saturday when I post a new video. And don't forget to stay sparkly, my dudes!